Brad Stevens does it again. In the dog days of the offseason, Brad Stevens does not sleep. Two major moves on a Tuesday here as the Celtics made a big trade, sending away Georges Niang to get R.J. Lewis. They had to give up 2 second-round picks to do it, but trust me, this is a good move. And then, consequently, they went out and made a signing to fill out their roster with Chris Boucher, the big man out of Oregon, who had a pretty solid under-the-radar season last year, a 1-year, $3.3 million deal. We'll break down both of these moves in depth in just a moment, but this is why you subscribe to the channel. When the Celtics make a move, we make a video right here at Celtics Today. This news came across my timeline. I was like, oh, let's go. This is going to be awesome. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about really how the Celtics look as a whole here as their roster seems kind of filled out for the 25-26 season. We'll talk about it in just a moment, but make sure you are subscribed to the channel, youtube.com/CelticsTV for the best Celtics content all offseason long. Alrighty, the trade went down, and we had heard rumblings all offseason that the Celtics were not married to the newly acquired Georges Niang and Anthony Simons. They're obviously more had come out, obviously, for Brad Stevens. Simons makes $27 million, a harder contract to deal, and a player that they're probably a little bit more invested in and want to see through more so than Georges Niang here, making $8 million. And they get massive, massive salary relief here as this trade goes into a John Collins trade exception. You'd be wondering, if you know the NBA rules, you can't usually take a player back in a deal that you send away into a trade exception. Well, since R.J. Lewis is an undrafted free agent and is on a 2-way contract, I guess the CBA makes it happen there. Firstly, about this move, I want to send a big-time thank you, as you see who the trade partner is, to the Utah Jazz and our good friends Danny and Austin Ainge. This isn't the first time that the C's have made deals with people that have been in their organization in the past. Look all the way back to Danny's first major deal when he was general manager of Boston, getting Kevin Garnett. Well, who was running the show up in Minnesota? That's Kevin McHale. And it just comes full circle now at the C's and Brad Stevens and the Ainges are all making deals here to help each other out just a little bit. And this is why, going back to Brad Stevens' whole part of this is why having second-round picks is important. This is why when you make deals for Kristaps Porzingis and, the Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Drew Holiday, and all these deals, and Derek White, all these deals they're flipping stuff around to make this team better, they're quietly accumulating more and more second-round draft capital in order to be able to move off of these, unwanted contracts around the league, like Georges Niang's $8 million this season. And this brings me to this point. It is a little odd to me and crazy how values are looked at around the NBA when Boston didn't have to attach any draft capital to Drew Holiday and his $100 million left on his contract, but they did have to give it to do Georges Niang trade, which is just a little bit crazy to me. The Holiday is obviously a much more productive player, but it seems like that contract was not as valued around the league, or I guess a little bit more valued than we thought. Now, Bobby Marks breaking down kind of how this works for Boston and really why this is such great news for the Celtics. Trust me, from the crux of the trade, if you look at player to player, yeah, Georges Niang is, of course, he's better than R.J. Lewis. And we have to give up 2 second-round picks to be able to do it. Well, this is why the C's end up big-time winners from my point of view. Bobby Marks says that Utah is acquiring Georges Niang with part of the $26.6 million John Collins trade exception. Niang is on an expiring $8.2 million deal, and the Celtics tax bill drops from $73 million to $30 million. Yeah, that's a $43 million savings by making this trade. So, yeah, I'm okay with giving up the 2 second-round picks to be able to go there and do this. They're now $10 million below the second apron, and they're $1.7 million over the first. The fact that we are literally almost under the first apron at this point, and I guess not anymore after the Boucher signing, is insane to me. And here's what the Celtics cap table looks at as a whole. Is Boucher on this just yet? He is on this. Okay, so the Celtics look pretty good now from this standpoint. They are about $4.5 million or $4 million or so above the first apron, so that isn't too bad. I like where we're looking at right now. I know, I get it. The roster as a whole, as far as how it looks competitively, is really, really not that great. But this is going to be a developmental season. It's a gap year. We knew this going in. We've known this since the middle of May when Jayson Tatum went down, that this C's team probably doesn't have the best overall shot at winning the NBA Finals next season. So now let's talk about what the C's got back in this deal, because I don't think it can be completely understated that R.J. Lewis is a fine player, and he's a guy who many people expected to be drafted, maybe even early on in the second round of the NBA draft. Now, Rick Pitino did end up benching him in the NCAA tournament. There's a couple of maybe some character issues that maybe made him fall a little bit further down in the draft this year, but you can't argue with what he was able to do for the Red Storm and for the UMass Minutemen in his collegiate career. The guy's a bucket, and he got buckets from multiple levels. I couldn't find if he actually got any big-time minutes for the Utah Jazz in the Summer League. Summer League stats are so hard to come by, but during his collegiate career, man, he was just a straight bucket getter, and he got better as his career went on. In his first year at St. John's, they were a little bit underwhelming in that season, and you go to his final season in college, and he's an 18-point-per-game scorer. He's a Big East Player of the Year. He's grabbing a bunch of rebounds out there as well, just doing what needs to be done on both ends of the floor to make him a really, really valuable college player. Is he going to translate into the NBA? Well, the Celtics are as good of a destination as there is in the league to be able to find that out at this point. This is going to be a year where there's a lot of developmental talent, a lot of minutes being devoted to developing these young players in the Celtics organization. Hopefully, one or two of these guys becomes diamonds in the rough, and you have them on really, really cheap deals for years to come. So in this trade, you get immense, and like I'm talking salary cap relief that you don't see too often. You had to go out there and deal with a friend, a buddy, to get the deal done. So glad that Brad Stevens and the Celtics organization has some friends around the league. And then you get an R.J. Lewis and a player you can take a swing on who really put up some big-time production at the college level against really high-level competition. What do you guys think of the trade? A, B, C, D, or F? Grade it for me down in the comment section. I'm liking this one, guys. I know the return, if you're just looking at it from an on-court standpoint, is, of course, unequal. But when you think about the relief, when you think about how difficult it is for the Celtics to move off of contracts, completely shedding the salary, this is an awesome, awesome deal. I would give it an A- if I am grading this trade. You let me know what you think in the comments section. Next, we're going to go over the Chris Boucher signing. The Celtics make a big signing. I guess a little bit of a double entendre there to fill out their roster. We'll talk about Boucher in just a moment, but first, make sure you get hooked up with this awesome deal that we've been pushing out here on the channel. Celtics championship t-shirts. I know, as we make more and more deals and the Celtics roster gets filled out, it's looking pretty doom and gloom for next season. So go get yourself a Celtics championship t-shirt today. And yeah, it says $17 here. It's even lower now. It's $13 at this link right here, chatsports.com/champ sale. That's chatsports.com/champ sale. I know you guys want to get an awesome, you might have Celtics 2024 championship shirts. Why not get another one for the low? All the sizes are available, and that link is in the comment section and description of today's video for you guys. Go get yourself an awesome Celtics 2024 title shirt today. Reminisce on the good times. All right, Shams came in and said it right after this trade went down. I actually want to see, looking back at Shams' Twitter, I have it open here, how far apart these two announcements were actually made. So from the time that I'm recording this, there's 53 minutes since the trade was announced, and then the Boucher signing was 35 minutes ago. So 18 minutes in between these two things going down. Chris Boucher has agreed to a one-year, $3.3 million deal with the Boston Celtics. And Boucher lands a guaranteed deal with the season and is expected to have a significant role in the front court. And honestly, he's deservedly so. Like, Chris Boucher had a pretty under-the-radar season last year. He averaged 10-5, and he comes here 32 years old off of, honestly, one of the better seasons of his career. Yeah, the Raptors were bad, but who cares at the end of the day? The guy put up solid numbers, and for $3.3 million, you're not finding much better production around the league. We've been talking about a guy like Charles Bassey potentially being an option for Boston, but he hasn't had near the amount of NBA success that Boucher has had. Plus, Boucher even gives you a floor spacing element, shooting basically league average from three-point line last season on a couple attempts a night. 10 points a game, 5 boards. He's not going to be the best overall defender, but he's a smart basketball player. I think he can play within the flow of Boston's offense and provide enough floor spacing to warrant time out there for extended stretches, especially when you consider what the Celtics have elsewhere on the basketball court down low. Neemias Queta, 0 floor spacing there, and who knows if his hands are going to get any better coming into year 3 with Boston. What about Luka Garza? That's going to be more of your down low, post up kind of offensive guru down on the low block there, not giving you much in the defensive end or mobility wise. Xavier Tillman, there's questions whether his knees work or not, and a 6'7" center, I'm just not all keen on having him out there for big stretches. We already know what Xavier Tillman is. I'd like to develop some of the more unproven guys on the roster. And Amari Williams, he didn't get much minutes in Summer League, so we'll see how often he gets on the floor for Boston. He's also on a 2-way contract, so playing a large portion of the season with the Maine Celtics. Look, it's still horrific. It's still the worst front court in the league, and it's still a front court that is going to position the Celtics to potentially miss the playoffs this upcoming season. But at least you get more size here. You don't have to play Georges Niang at the 4 and just watch him get blown by every slow-ass player that takes a dribble past him. Like that I was not looking forward to this season. And I think we can all probably know now that Jaylen Brown wasn't the happiest about Georges Niang coming over to Boston. So you basically, when you think about all these moves in one, you trade away Georges Niang and 2 second-round picks in exchange for R.J. Lewis and Chris Boucher. It's a wash at the end of the day. I know Georges Niang has been a really good shooter. Screw Georges Niang. He's not. He was never going to play a role for this Celtics team, and it's great now that with him gone. Yes, you have Boucher probably taking a good portion of the minutes of the starting front court spot, but you will also have room and the ability and slots open for these young players that you've drafted and invested, short-term capital into to succeed. Josh Minot, Ugo Gonzalez, if he can get out there on the floor this year. Sam Hauser's going to get a bigger opportunity than he's ever gotten in his career before. I don't know, the two-way guys like Max Shulga, like there are some serious Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh. There's some serious opportunity for the young cats on the Celtics team to get real burn now with a guy like Georges Niang, who is probably going to take a pretty big role from them if he started the season on the Celtics roster. So Niang for RJ Lewis and Chris Boucher, you throw in 2 second-round picks. Good thing you had the ammo. What do you think, guys? Grade the signing of Chris Boucher for me down in the comment section. And I know I told you guys to grade the trade for me earlier, but make sure you're specific. 1 grade for the trade, 1 grade for the signing, Chris Boucher. A, B, C, D, or F, you let me know down in the comment section. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We'll talk more in depth on tomorrow's video about how this affects the Celtics, what the rotation might look like, because the C's roster is filled out, my friends. We're on the road to training camp right now. The dog days of the offseason are here. Make sure you lock us in. Keep us in the loop as your #1 source for Celtics content on YouTube. Hit that sub button. We'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, let's go C's.